They say cops found 4 plates of food still warm, a baby monitor playing static, and a message on the wall written in ketchup. We're not alone. The family that lived there? Gone. Not a single trace. If you think that's chilling, wait till you hear what police found next. Subscribe now for more untold urban mysteries. And don't forget to like, share, and press the bell icon. The apartment sat on the corner of Westmoreland and 8th, a tired, beige complex wedged between a liquor store and an auto repair shop. Most people who lived there kept to themselves. Rent was cheap, neighbors were transient, and no one asked too many questions. But apartment 3B was different. For almost a year, the DeLucas, Victor, Maria, their teenage daughter Isabel, and 6-year-old Luca had brought a kind of warmth to the place that didn't belong in that part of town. Every morning, Maria watered the little plants on the balcony. Victor worked construction, usually gone before sunrise. Isabel babysat kids in the building, and little Luca loved waving at everyone from the window. Ordinary people, ordinary lives, until the night of March 17th. It was a Friday, and it had been raining heavy for LA. The last confirmed sighting of the family was around 8:45 p.m. When the downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Park, heard them arguing about something, she told police later it wasn't a violent fight. Just voices raised, then laughter. After that, silence. At 10:02 p.m., a call was made from Victor's phone to 911. A brief 2-second connection, nothing but static on the recording. The dispatcher tried calling back, no answer. When officers arrived the next morning, the door to 3B was locked from the inside. The landlord used his spare key to open it. What they found didn't make sense. The dinner table was set for 4, plates half-eaten. Glasses of juice untouched. The television was still playing a children's cartoon volume low. Maria's phone was on the counter, screen cracked, showing a half-typed message that simply read, "It's in the hallway." There were no signs of forced entry. No blood, no damage. The only strange thing was the smell, something metallic, faint, but noticeable. And on the kitchen wall, drawn with what at first looked like ketchup, the words, "We're not alone." Detective Javier Rojas, who led the first response team, would later tell the press. It felt like the room was paused midlife. Everything, the food, the lights, even the air felt frozen. He ordered a search of the entire building. Every floor, every storage room, the basement, and the roof. Nothing. No sign of the DeLucas. When they checked security footage from the entrance cameras, they found something even stranger. Between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m., no one had entered or left apartment 3B, not a single frame. Yet the footage from 1:47 a.m. showed a flicker, a brief white flash across the hallway, like a surge of static. Neighbors began talking. Some claimed they'd heard a child's voice on the stairwell that night, humming a song. Others said they saw lights flickering behind the DeLucas curtains around midnight. By day 3, story had reached the local news. Entire family vanishes from LA apartment. No signs of struggle. Detectives canvassed hospitals, airports, shelters. Nothing. The DeLucas had simply disappeared. Then came the footage from inside the apartment. A baby monitor camera placed on the shelf in the living room, still running on backup power when police found it. The first hour of the recording looked normal. The family at dinner, laughing, the father checking his phone, the mother scolding her son for spilling water. At 8:47 p.m., the recording glitched. The image froze for 2 seconds, then returned. The mother and father were gone from the table. The 2 children remained, Isabel staring toward the hallway, Luca clutching a spoon, whispering something that sounded like, "He's here," and then static. The rest of the recording was nothing but flickering gray lines until 2:03 a.m., when a sound came through, a low hum, followed by 3 knocks. Slow, even, close. When Detective Rojas replayed the footage in slow motion, he noticed something in the last frame before the camera cut out, a reflection in the mirror opposite the hallway. A tall figure, pale, standing perfectly still. Experts were called. Digital analysts said it was video distortion. Paranormal investigators said otherwise. Within a week, rumors began to spread across Reddit threads and local blogs. People speculated everything: human trafficking, cult involvement, even supernatural theories. But one detail never made the public report. On Victor's construction site locker, found days later, detectives discovered a notebook. Inside were sketches of the apartment layout, with symbols drawn along the walls. Circles, arrows, and something written repeatedly in Spanish: El Eco nos sig, the echo follows us. Rojas kept that page in his personal file. He never spoke about what it meant, only saying in one interview he knew something before it happened, and the building was inspected a month later. Maintenance workers discovered something behind the drywall of apartment 3B, a narrow space between the kitchen and bathroom, barely a foot wide. Inside was a small sealed door with no handle. The maintenance crew didn't want to touch it at first. That's strange. Sealed door hidden behind the drywall of apartment 3B. It wasn't on any blueprint. No record of it in the building's original plans from 1978, when the landlord finally gave permission. They chipped away the plaster, layer by layer, until the rectangular outline of the small metal door appeared, barely 3 feet tall, without a knob. Just 4 bolts and a padlock hanging loosely from one side. Detective Rojas stood back, hands on his hips. He'd seen a lot in 18 years. Gang killings, kidnappings, disappearances, but nothing like this. "Open it," he told the maintenance guy. The man hesitated, then pried it loose with a crowbar. A rush of cold air came out first, colder than it should have been for a sealed wall. Dust swirled in the light as the space behind it revealed a narrow crawlway leading into darkness. Rojas shone his flashlight inside. The beam stretched maybe 6 feet, then stopped at another surface, like another wall or an obstruction. They widened the opening and crawled in. The passage smelled like rust and wet concrete. It wasn't part of the building's structure. No wiring, no insulation, nothing. Just old cement and something else, faint marks scratched into the wall. When the detective brushed the surface with his gloved hand, he realized they were fingernail scratches. At the end of the passage was another wall. But this one had something embedded in it. A small mirror cracked down the center. Beneath it, written in thick black marker, were words that chilled everyone there. "Don't let it hear you." The area was sealed off immediately. LAPD's forensics team took over. They found traces of human DNA on the scratches, multiple samples, including one that matched Victor DeLuca. That meant at least one of the missing family members had been in that crawl space. But why? And when? The footage from the baby monitor became the key focus again. Analysts enhanced the audio, isolating background frequencies. Around the time the parents vanish in the recording, a faint tone appears, a low, rhythmic vibration, almost like a hum mixed with static. Some said it resembled a deep human voice, repeating something indecipherable. The media went wild. The story made national headlines now: the vanishing family of Westmoreland Avenue. Talk shows debated cult involvement, ritual symbols, and the possibility of secret tunnels under the city. Rojas didn't buy the cult theory. He believed there was a human explanation, maybe an obsession, a breakdown, something Victor had planned. But the notebook drawings still bothered him. The symbols, circles with slashes through them, matched carvings found in the crawl space walls. A week later, one of the officers assigned to evidence processing, Officer Crane, went missing. He was last seen leaving the precinct after 11 p.m., carrying a USB copy of the DeLuca footage. His car was found 2 days later, parked just 6 blocks from the apartment complex, keys still in the ignition. When detectives checked the car's dashcam, the last few seconds showed something strange. Crane sitting in the driver's seat, glancing at the rearview mirror. His mouth moved. He whispered something. Then a flash of white light filled the screen. The camera froze. Now even Rojas couldn't explain it. The case files were moved to a restricted evidence locker. Only 2 detectives had access. The precinct quietly stopped talking to the media. By early May, the building's tenants began moving out. They said they could hear things at night, whispers through the vents, sounds like crying from inside the walls. The landlord replaced drywall, repainted, even offered rent cuts. Nothing helped. A month later, new tenant moved into 3B, a single mother named Angela Ruiz with her son Mateo. She said she didn't believe in ghosts, just needed a cheap place to stay. For the first 2 weeks, everything was fine. Then, one night, she called 911. The recording still exists. It's short, only 48 seconds, but it's enough. You can hear Angela breathing heavily, whispering to the operator, "Someone's in the walls." The operator asks her to stay calm, asks if she can see anyone. Angela says, "No, but my son's talking to someone." There's a pause, then the boy's voice faintly says, "He's back." The line cuts out. Officers arrived 15 minutes later. The door was unlocked, lights still on, TV playing static. The apartment was empty again. Rojas went there himself that night. He looked around. Same smell, same strange chill. On the floor of the living room, he found a crumpled drawing made with a child's hand. 4 stick figures holding hands. And one tall shape standing behind them, drawn in black crayon. That's when he noticed the mirror. The small mirror they'd removed from the crawl space weeks ago, it was back. Sitting on the coffee table, clean, unbroken. For the first time, Rojas admitted he was scared. He ordered the apartment sealed for good and went home that night shaking. But he couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., he received a text from an unknown number. It had no name, no subject, just an address and a short message, "We moved again." The address was in East Hollywood, another apartment building. The one Victor DeLuca's construction company had been working on before he disappeared. The next morning, Rojas drove there alone. The building was still half-built, steel frames and exposed drywall. As he stepped inside, he heard something faint echoing through the empty halls, a soft humming sound, low and distant. Like the one from the baby monitor footage, he followed it to the end of the corridor, where a single apartment door stood half open. Apartment 5C. Inside, the air felt heavy, almost electric. On the floor, he saw children's toys, old, worn. Covered in dust, he looked up and froze. There on the opposite wall were words scrawled in red marker. "You're late." Next to it, a handprint, small, fresh, dripping. Detective Ruiz sat alone in the dimly lit evidence room, eyes glued to the flickering monitor. The apartment's security feed played on loop 11:37 p.m., then 11:38. And the Williams family still there? At 11:39, the father looked toward the hallway camera as if hearing something. His lips moved, saying something that couldn't be heard through the grainy footage. Then static. 3 full seconds of it. When the image returned, the dining table was empty. The food plates were untouched, steam still rising. No one had left. No one had entered. They were just gone. Ruiz leaned forward, rewinding again, frame by frame. And that's when he saw it, in the final clear frame before the static, a faint reflection in the TV screen. It wasn't one of the family members. It was a tall silhouette, standing behind the couch. He froze the frame, printed it, and took it to forensics. "Clean this up," he ordered. "I want to see that face." Hours later, the technician came back, pale and quiet. "Sir," she said, placing the enhanced print on the table. Ruiz's eyes widened. The face in the reflection wasn't a stranger's. It was the same man who had disappeared, David Williams. The father himself. "How is that possible?" Ruiz muttered. "He's sitting at the table in the same shot." The tech just shook her head. "Sir, there's something else. Look at the timestamp." The reflections from 11:41 p.m. to 2 minutes after the camera cut out. It didn't make sense. How could the reflection exist after the footage ended? The detective began digging into the building's history. The LA apartment complex, Sunvale Towers, wasn't new. It had been rebuilt 3 times after fires in the 1960s, 1980s, and once again in 2009. Each time, something strange had been reported. Tenants hearing voices in vents, lights flickering in empty hallways, elevators stopping on unoccupied floors. But one file stood out. A tenant from 1982, a woman named Carla Benton, had written multiple complaints before her death. She said her son kept talking to the family in the walls. Ruiz flipped through the photocopied letters, crude handwriting, fading ink, and in one sentence repeated over and over. They live here now. They never left. Ruiz decided to check the maintenance tunnels under the building. The janitor hesitated when asked for access. "You don't want to go down there at night," he said, trembling. "Sometimes you can hear them." Still Ruiz descended, flashlight in hand. The tunnels were damp and narrow, old wiring hanging like spider webs. He followed the hum of an electrical line until it stopped at a sealed door. Marked "Boiler Room, do not enter." The air grew colder. His light flickered. He turned the handle locked. He took a crowbar, forced it open, and stepped inside. The smell hit him first, metallic like rust and rot. The room was large, lined with ancient pipes. But in the center, something gleamed under the flashlight. A metal chair bolted to the floor, with old restraints attached. Around it, hundreds of small scratches etched into the concrete, like someone had been clawing at it for years. He lifted the beam higher and froze. On the far wall, words had been carved in large, uneven letters. "We were never alone." Before he could react, the sound came, faint footsteps above him. Then another sound, a whisper, like a woman's voice, but distorted by the pipes. "David, dinner's getting cold." Ruiz's flashlight flickered again, then went out completely. He reached for his gun. "Who's there?" No response. Only the steady creak of metal. Then, a flash. The emergency lights came on, bathing the room in red. For a brief second, Ruiz saw movement. 4 silhouettes standing at the far end of the boiler room. A man, a woman, and 2 children. He blinked, and they were gone. Ruiz stumbled out of the tunnels, gasping for air. He called for backup, but the line cut mid-sentence. His phone read 11:39 p.m., the exact time the Williams family had disappeared. Later that night, Ruiz returned to the station. The forensic tech was waiting for him, clutching another photo. "Sir, you need to see this," she said. We pulled the reflection again from a different angle. "There's someone else behind David." The detective stared at the image. Behind the man's reflection was another, a shadow, with no features, no eyes, no face. But what made Ruiz's stomach twist was that the shape of its hand seemed to rest on David's shoulder, almost possessively. "Could it be a camera glitch?" he asked. The tech hesitated. "Sir, that shadow? It shows up in every single mirror reflection from that apartment for the last 6 months." Ruiz knew then this wasn't just a disappearance. This was something older, deeper, something tied to the building itself. As he looked out over the LA skyline from the station window, one thought wouldn't leave his head. If the family vanished inside that apartment, maybe they never really left. And for the first time in years, Detective Ruiz felt fear, not of death, but of the idea that some places... Remember? Detective Ruiz couldn't sleep that night. The faces from the boiler room haunted him, those 4 silhouettes, still and silent, watching him in that dim red light. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the father's reflection again, that impossible timestamp, 2:11:41 p.m., 2 minutes after the family had vanished. At dawn, Ruiz returned to the precinct. He walked straight into the evidence lab where the video drives were kept. The technician Alina looked up, startled. "Sir, I thought you were off this case for now." Captain said. "I don't care what the captain said," Ruiz cut her off. "Pull every file from that apartment, audio, video, anything." Hours later, a pile of external drives sat before him, each labeled Unit 609 MISC, maintenance footage. Plugged in the oldest one, dated 3 months before the disappearance. The footage showed the Williams family settling in, cheerful. Ordinary. Birthday decorations, TV flickering, a sense of warmth. But in the background of nearly every clip, there was something off. When the father laughed, the reflection in the TV didn't move. When the mother turned, a faint silhouette crossed behind her. And the children, they sometimes stared directly at the camera when no one else noticed. Ruiz paused, replayed, slowed it down. On one night's recording, the daughter Lily, 9 years old, sat on her bed, talking quietly. "What are you drawing?" her mom's voice asked from behind the camera. "The people who live here," Lily said. "Which people?" Lily looked straight into the lens. "The ones who live in the walls." Ruiz's skin went cold. He scrubbed through more footage until something strange appeared. A file with no date, no timestamp, just labeled "Do Not Play." He hesitated, then opened it. The screen stayed black for a few seconds. Then a faint static hum started. Gradually, the camera's view appeared. It was the living room again, but darker. The furniture was gone, the wallpaper peeling. A man's voice whispered, "Please, if anyone finds this, don't stay here." Ruiz leaned closer. The face came into focus. It was David Williams. His eyes were hollow, terrified. "They said they'd keep us," David whispered. "Said we belong here now. But it's not the building, it's..." Underneath, sudden jolt, the camera shook violently. The video distorted, David's mouth stretching unnaturally as if pulled by unseen hands. Then the frame froze, and a faint image appeared, like a burned film reel. 4 figures again, standing behind him perfectly still. The clip cut off. Ruiz sat frozen, heart pounding. He reached for his phone, called the department's building records office. "Pull everything you can on Sunvale Towers. Who owned the land before construction?" An hour later, a fax came through. Old city maps, black and white, brittle edges. Where Sunvale Towers now stood used to be a psychiatric facility, shut down in 1958 after a fire. The name on the paper: Los Angeles Institute for the Mentally Disturbed, Ward 6. And right beneath it, chilling note in the city record: entire ward perished. "No bodies recovered," Ruiz whispered to himself. Ward 6. Unit 609. Same number. Same floor layout. Same coordinates. He raced to the apartment complex with a warrant, joined by 2 uniformed officers. The building manager, visibly nervous, met them in the lobby. "I told you before," he stammered. "That unit's sealed off. No one's gone in since the police left. And you won't mind if I take a look," Ruiz replied coldly. The manager fumbled with his keys, opened the door, and immediately stepped back. The apartment was freezing. No lights, just that smell again. Rust and something older, damp, decaying. Ruiz walked to the dining area. The table was still there, just like the night of the disappearance. Plates, glasses, half-eaten food perfectly preserved. Even the candle in the center still had melted wax frozen. Mid-drip, he moved toward the hallway where the reflection had been seen. His flashlight passed over the TV, cracked and dark. On the wall behind it, faint markings almost invisible under the paint. He brushed his hand over them, and the dust came off in flakes, revealing scratched letters underneath. "Below us." Ruiz called to the officers, "Get maintenance. I want that floor opened." Within minutes, tools arrived. They pried open a section of the floor near the wall, and beneath the wood an old steel hatch appeared. Sealed shut with a corroded padlock. "Looks like part of the old facility," one officer muttered. Ruiz forced it open, and a cold draft blew upward. He pointed his flashlight down, a narrow staircase, descending into complete darkness. He took a deep breath. "Stay on radio contact. I'm going in." Step by step, the air grew heavier. The staircase walls were lined with faded tiles, hospital tiles. At the bottom, a door waited, half open. Ruiz pushed through, and the beam of his flashlight revealed rows of old patient beds, rusted and twisted. The walls were covered in drawings, stick figures, crosses, numbers, all scratched into the plaster. Then, he heard it again. The voice. "David, dinner's getting cold." He turned. His radio hissed with static. "Unit 12? Come in. Do you copy?" No answer. The sound of footsteps echoed behind him. Slow, wet, deliberate. He swung the flashlight around. Nothing. Only the old beds. But one was different. It wasn't empty. Ruiz approached slowly. A shape lay under a sheet. He lifted it and stumbled back. It was a body, perfectly preserved, eyes wide open. The same face from the video. David Williams. Before Ruiz could process it, a metallic clang echoed above the hatch slamming shut. His radio died. The emergency lights flickered to life, bathing the underground ward in red dot, and then he saw them. For silhouettes at the far end of the hallway, standing motionless, the father, the mother, the two children, all watching him, just like before. Ruiz backed away, gun drawn. "Stay back," he shouted, but they didn't move. Instead, the mother tilted her head and in a calm, almost gentle voice said, "You shouldn't have come here. Now you're one of us." The lights went out. The light died, but the whispers didn't. They echoed through the old ward, soft, distorted, like voices underwater. "Stay with us." Ruiz gripped his flashlight, slapping it until it flickered weakly back on. The beam wavered across the rusted beds and peeling paint. The silhouettes were gone. He stumbled backward toward the stairs, only to find the door sealed shut. He pounded on it. "Unit 12. Anyone up there?" Nothing. Only the creaking metal of the pipes above him. Then something new. The faint sound of a child humming. The tune was simple, like a lullaby. Ruiz followed the sound down a narrow corridor, deeper into the darkness. His boots echoed against the tile floor as the air grew colder, thicker. The humming stopped. He turned a corner and froze. Before him was a wall of photographs, dozens of them pinned with rusty nails. Each photo showed a different family, some black and white, some recent. But every one was taken in the same apartment, Unit 609, families smiling. Kids blowing out birthday candles, couples watching TV, and beneath each photo, a small note written in red marker, "Stayed here forever." Ruiz's hand trembled as he reached for the newest photo. His heart nearly stopped. It was the Williams family. David, Sarah, Lily, and Noah. And in the background of their smiling picture, almost hidden by a glare, that same dark silhouette watching from behind the curtain. A sudden metallic screech behind him. Ruiz spun around, gun raised. The door to an old storage room had creaked open by itself. He edged closer, flashlight shaking. Inside, there were rows of old tape recorders, covered in dust. Labels read "Patient Sessions to 1958. He pressed play on one. The tape crackled. Then a calm, male voice spoke. "Session 12A. Patient claims to hear voices beneath the floor." A woman's voice followed, soft, broken. "They said we can't leave. The doctor lives here now," he said. "He'll keep us." The voice turned into a scream, and Ruiz hit stop. He realized it then. The psychiatric hospital that had burned down wasn't just beneath the building. It was still there. The apartment above was built on top of its ruins, maybe even using the same foundation. And somehow, whatever was trapped down there never left. A low hum filled the room. The tape recorders clicked on by themselves, one after another, till the air was filled with overlapping whispers, dozens of voices, crying, begging. Ruiz clamped his hands over his ears and stumbled toward the exit. He burst through a hallway and back into the boiler room. The red emergency lights flickered again, and for a moment the walls looked alive. Shadows rippled across them like liquid. Shapes formed, faces pressing against the concrete from inside, mouths opening and closing silently. Ruiz shouted, "What do you want?" A woman's voice, clear this time, answered, "We just want to stay home." The boiler hissed violently. Steam shot out. The air filled with heat, light, then darkness again. When Ruiz opened his eyes, he was lying on the apartment floor in Unit 609. The lights were back on. The food on the table was still warm. The TV was playing static. And sitting across the table was David Williams. He smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have come, Detective." Ruiz scrambled backward, reaching for his gun. David didn't move. His eyes were hollow, unfocused. "They said the building remembers us. Every time someone tries to leave, it starts over. Dinner time. Always dinner time." Ruiz glanced toward the hallway and saw them. Sarah at the sink, washing dishes that weren't dirty. The children in the living room, playing silently, repeating the same movements in a loop. "This isn't real," Ruiz whispered. David's voice lowered. Neither was the fire. They never let it burn. It only spreads. Ruiz looked down at his badge and froze. The metal was melting, the edges soft. The walls began to ripple like water. The apartment around him shifted, turning darker, older. The wallpaper peeling back to reveal the same hospital tiles underneath. He ran for the door, but when he flung it open, it didn't lead to the hallway. It opened to the boiler room again. The words "We were never alone" glowed faintly on the wall. Ruiz fell to his knees. "Please, just let me go." From behind him, the voice of Lily echoed, sweet, childlike. "You can stay. You belong here now." He turned and saw her face up close. Her eyes were black, her smile wide and unnatural. The rest of the family stood behind her, motionless. David whispered, "Welcome home." The light went white. 1 week later, the building manager opened Unit 609 for a real estate inspection. The apartment was spotless. No signs of struggle, no blood, no smell. Just silence. On the table, however, sat one thing. A police badge, slightly burned around the edges. Next to it, a small piece of paper in shaky handwriting. "Dinner's getting cold." 2 months later, a young couple moved into Sunvale Towers, excited about their new start. The husband laughed. "Can you believe how cheap this place was?" His wife smiled. "Yeah, and the view's perfect." Their daughter tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mommy," she said softly, pointing toward the TV reflection. "What, honey?" The family and the screen? They're waving. To learn what really happened to the Williams family and other mysteries buried beneath our cities, subscribe for more untold stories. Don't forget to like, share, and press the bell icon.